It's Wednesday. That means it's time for the crossover. Let's do it. You see them every day, Monday to Friday, 10 to noon on Check TV, and they join us here, as they do every week, for the crossover. From Donnie and Dhali, it is Don Taylor and Rick Dhaliwal. Fellas, what's going on?
Well, big game tonight, Rogers Arena. Yeah,
yep.
There's that. McCarr versus Hughes, a whole lot, yeah.
Yeah, the start of the Casey DeSmith run in net. How confident are you guys feeling about the Canucks' ability to deal with the absence of Thatcher Demko here?
Well, look, a perfect world, Thatcher Demko is healthy and Casey DeSmith isn't in goal tonight, in a perfect world. But they have played so much better defensively over the last 4 to 7 games, I would say, so that would have to give you a whole lot of confidence. But, man, is it going to be put to the test tonight? They look so good, the Avalanche, in Calgary, and they've also won 4 games. I like, though, what Tocchet had to say about this drill, and Thomas, maybe you know more about this specific drill that they're doing right now, and that they're repeating practice after practice, and it seems to be having great results. And anybody who's involved in coaching in hockey, that repetition, if you can take that over to a game, that's a big deal. I think a lot of people wondering where that drill might have been earlier in the season. But whatever works. And, hey, look, I think this is just a great test tonight. It's one thing. And they've played good teams, no question about it, during this 4-game win streak. But this is the big test tonight. And will that defense hold up with Casey DeSmith in goal? The other thing Rick Tocchet said yesterday, and Thomas, you were there, was, sometimes when your backup goalie is in that, and you like him a whole lot, it's subconscious, but you just maybe give a little extra, and I agree with that.
Well, I just want to say something about DeSmith. I think the Canucks having him this year was really good, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that, because late into the summer last summer, the Canucks were still thinking of Silovs. He was coming off that World Hockey Championship. He was doing really well, and they were thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, they get DeSmith. And one of the reasons they got DeSmith is because DeSmith's agent, who also represents Demko, was trying to move him out of Montreal and thought, hey, he played a pretty vital role in Casey DeSmith ending up in Vancouver, kind of helped broker that deal between Vancouver and Montreal. So you got a veteran guy, right? As opposed to a young guy. And, Spencer Martin, we talked about this on the show today. I mean, Spencer Martin as the backup didn't work, right? The Canucks didn't have a lot of money for the backup position, cap-wise. And then they went out and got Casey DeSmith. They got him, no matter how they got him. But he has certainly been I know everyone's talking about the Minnesota game, but you got to forget that, because earlier in the year he was really, really good. He's gotten a lot of points in the games he's played, but it's just a really good situation for the Canucks to have a veteran guy like this, who, by the way, played his career high 38 games last year for Pittsburgh. So it's a kind of good that, Demko gets hurt and they got this, guy with 153 games of NHL experience. So that is really good to have him back there.
It's good to lose one of the best goaltenders in the
I never said that. It's not good to lose him, Donnie, but it's good to have a backup. How about if the backup was Silovs or Spencer Martin? What would you be doing then?
Well, Donnie, it's not so much that it's good to lose your main goalie. It's good that the Canucks have a backup and they trust him so much they only played him 3 times in 17 games after the All-Star break.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey,
thank you.
Hey, and Donnie and I had a big question today on the show. Is yesterday Tocchet availability for 20 minutes? Nobody asked him. Did you overplay Demko? And is that played a role in the injury? Nobody. Were you not there, Thomas?
I was not there. No,
he was actually not there.
Did you not ask?
I was not there.
He was here. It was during our show. It was during our show.
We find it fascinating that nobody.
I've never seen you at the
rink.
rink. How are you doing this?
Hey, hold it a second. Taylor brought it up.
Were you not
he was
there?
warning about it.
I've never seen you there.
Listen. Hey, I'm asking you why nobody asked Tocchet if he overplayed him in 11 out of 13 starts in February.
Take it up with Batch.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not here for the backseat driving on it. We were asking Tocchet, both me, David Quadrelli, there was like a run of us three straight availabilities the week before he got hurt, asking him about the goalie usage. How do you wedge DeSmith in, given how I'm not going to show up and be like, well, now that an injury that I have no reason to believe is related to overuse has occurred, how did you mess that up, Rick? Like, that's not. I was asking him about the usage because I thought it was a little bit interesting beforehand. I don't think there's an obligation to go dunk on the coach in a scrum and be like, explain yourself, man.
Not dunk on him.
A thing
just
happened.
ask, like, hey, no one's saying dunk on him, Thomas, but just to ask, hey, did it play a role in his
It would have
injury?
been interesting to hear his response.
Yeah,
You know what? It would.
Response. I know what his
Yeah.
response would have been.
Unrelated.
We work as a group here, and
Yeah.
Ian has a say, and we all felt it was the right call at the time. At a time when they were struggling, you put your number one guy in. I know what the call would have been, but it would have been interesting to hear.
Yeah, you're right. No,
what
it
the
would have.
answer would have
It would have been an interesting question. I should have asked it if I'd been there.
Next time, be there and then ask the question as well.
This, by the way, is my no
but
one
you
blocks
are there
shots
most
for
of
me.
the time, Thomas.
I am there most
Thomas,
of the time.
you are there most of the time. Yeah, that's why I asked.
It is frightening, and I know I haven't been in the room for a long time, but I was there for a long time.
Yeah.
During the sports day page and Sportsnet days, and I remember like the best advice I ever got as a young broadcaster was from J. Paul McConnell. If you ask a tough question and somebody tells you to F off, well, that's a great answer. You can play that for the next 3 months, and people will never ever forget it. You might get your lights punched out, but it'll be a good clip.
Good clip.
So one of my rules is if I carve somebody, I better be there the next day. And these days the Canucks are doing
Tony
so
Gallagher
well.
did that.
You never have to show up.
The Canucks are doing so well these days that I don't feel quite as much push in the morning.
No kidding.
I think
Mr. Negativity.
The other question with Demko is, we can look back at how much they played him, but what do you do going into next year? I mean, Rick, you're saying it's so lucky that they have DeSmith in-house as the backup. Can you go into next year with Seelovs as the backup, or do you need to kind of build in? Because this isn't Demko's first injury, and I'm not necessarily saying he's injury prone or anything like that, but do you need to kind of build in spending a little bit more on a veteran backup going forward now?
Well, Casey DeSmith is at $3 million, I think, and Thomas helped me out, I think around $3 million. And Seelovs has been kind of up and down, inconsistent this year in Abbotsford. Mm-hmm. And so look at their UFA list, guys.
I know.
I know they're trying to re-sign
1.8 by
right
the way,
now,
Rick.
but so DeSmith's at 1.8.
Very close.
Yeah, okay, but listen, I said late twos. But
You were
listen,
right
how are they going to re-sign everybody? I just don't. Lindholm, Bluger, Joshua, Zadorov, Myers, Cole. I mean, they got some massive decisions to make. How much do you want to spend on a backup? I mean, these are all questions they got to ask.
The backup one's interesting to me, Rick, because Demko's 28, right? He's going to turn 29 next season. And we all know what he can do. Like, we all think, all the people watching think, any Canucks fan thinks this guy's one of the best human beings at stopping pucks shot by NHL players on the planet, and with cause. But, his career high 64 games. That season ended with an injury that, he sort of carried into the next season. He's played 50 now or 49 and got hurt before the end of the season. Like, this is effectively a guy who next season is going to be a 29-year-old going into a season who has never really held down a workhorse, load of games without, while being available throughout. At some point, don't you need to bring in a guy to give him more meaningful rest during the season, especially given how important the concept of him being at his best in meaningful games is for this team?
Absolutely, and I wonder if that guy's Casey DeSmith, going forward. Just because, first of all, Minnesota game aside, you throw that out the door.
Bunch of pucks off skates and stuff, like whatever.
It was just so strange. He just seems so incredibly. First of all, he's pretty good at stopping pucks, but secondly, he just seems incredibly low maintenance and really, really popular. And Rick Tocchet, I'll refer to that clip again yesterday, talked about how much everybody likes the guy, and he stays out at a time at practice and all of that. And I just wonder, maybe he's the guy. I don't think people would have many problems with that unless this next stretch doesn't go all that well with Thatcher Demko out.
It's a good point. It's a pretty important audition for a pending UFA, right?
And the backup goalie's like the backup quarterback. He's got to have the good character. He can't whine or bitch or complain, and he hasn't done that. He hasn't done that, and you got to give him credit for that. He just went 6 weeks. He just went 6 weeks with only 3 starts, and you never saw him sulk or whine or cry. That's a sign of a good character guy in the dressing room, and that's what you need from your backup big time.
So with the Elias Pettersson deal done and dusted, the trade deadline has passed. A lot of attention now turning towards the other big RFA for the Canucks, Filip Hronek. Rick, what are you hearing about? We heard on our station Patrick Alvin last week saying they've tabled an offer to Filip Hronek. What are you hearing right now, Rick?
Well, obviously he's only 26 or 27. Sorry, he's an RFA. Arbrights currently makes 4.4. You want to lock him up. He's been good. You cannot deny he's been good since he got here. But here's some issues that have arisen. His career high for points is 38. Did that twice in Detroit. So right now he's at 45. But you can say he's played most of the year with Quinn Hughes. Power play time. I'm not comfortable giving him more than Quinn Hughes. I don't know how you could. We talked about, Donnie and I talked about comparables yesterday. Well, Abbotsford's Devon Taves, $7.2 million, all right? And he's had over 50 points twice. Mm-hmm. The Hronek camp, they've got comparables over $8 million. Mikhail Sergachev, as Thomas and I talked about yesterday, he's won at 8.5, and he never had more than 40 points before he signed for 8.5. You're going to have to pay for minutes, and you're going to have to pay for points. He's a right shot D. He's been really, really good this year. But, boy, does going into the high 7s and 8s, that I don't think that's something the Canucks want to do.
Interesting that you say he can't be paid more than Quinn Hughes.
No, he can't. No, there's no way, Don.
And yet when we brought up
stop it.
When we brought up him or Elias Pettersson making $3 or $4 million more than JT Miller, I know there's an age factor there. No problem at all.
I know. He's 5 years younger, Pettersson. Are you kidding me?
Right.
No.
But I think
that amount.
If you're
more?
the Canucks,
Donnie,
you're the Canucks, and you know what Quinn Hughes is. Go ahead.
Well,
go
I
ahead.
hate to take Rick's side, but there's no Elias Pettersson was never going to sign for $8 million. You know what I mean? So it's just like you can say, well, JT Miller makes that, but that was just never in the cards. Whereas, yeah, Filip Hronek has comps going above that, but it's not like 7.6 would be completely out of the ballpark like $8 million would for Petey, right? So I think that's the difference.
Except for this guy wanted Petey to be making $13 million.
I never said 13. Quit putting words in my mouth.
12 and a half, 13. That's what you said.
I said 11 or
and you
12.
Had no problem with that at all.
And they were talking 5-year deals that would have been well over 12 too, Don. So it would have been over 12. It was almost at 12.
Just
we were close.
Just let's we should note that at the time he was Pettersson's age, JT Miller's career high in points was 56. I think that's probably the explanation, Don. Right, like Pettersson's a 100-point guy who just signed at the age of 25. JT Miller at the age of 25 is career high.
But
56 points.
I listen to your show, you guys show all the time, and you love Elias Pettersson. He can't do wrong, and I agree with that. He is a fabulous, fabulous hockey player. All I'm saying is that this guy says that they can't pay Hronek more than Hughes, and yet you wanted them to pay Pettersson $5 million more a year than Miller.
Quinn Hughes is in the Quinn Hughes is in the Norris talk. The guys, what did you say? It went over my head.
Well, I know a lot of things do. No, the Miller versus Pettersson argument versus the other argument with Hughes and Hronek.
Well, first of all, Quinn Hughes might win the Norris this year. There's a guy that is in the Colorado lineup tonight that might have a say in that. But I don't feel comfortable with Hronek making more than Hughes. I'm sorry, Don. I don't. I just don't.
Well, I think the other, and Donnie, as you're saying, where's the walkaway number here, and can you pay him more than Quinn Hughes? I mean, I do think it's a very fair question, especially since so much of Hronek's success, you can argue, is tied to Quinn Hughes, right? And that's not going to hurt his arbitration case or his numbers, but we haven't seen Hronek really play away from Hughes for any extended stretch here, so we don't know what it would look like.
Yeah. We've seen a couple hundred minutes, and the results have been mid. What about the cap growth, though, Rick? Because this is the other thing you have to factor in, right? Like, Quinn Hughes signs for $7.85 in an $81.5 million environment. Cap's going to be $87.5 million next season. The equivalent, 9% of the cap. I mean, that's 8.5 right there. Like literally the Hughes contract in an $87.5 million upper limit environment is 8.5. Like it's 8.427, whatever. 8.43.
So Thomas, you're saying pay him over 8?
I think this is one of those where it's very clear that the market for a player who's performed like Hronek has and has put up points like this, 8.5 to me is not something we should have sticker shock, and I think there's going to be teams lining up to pay players of his quality.
Is sticker shock
that
there.
amount
His
this
previous
summer.
high, Thomas, his previous high for points was 39.
I understand that.
And you want him to go from 4 to 8.5?
He's going to be second in the NHL in 5-on-5 scoring among defensemen at the end of the season. He's going to have 55 to 60 points. He's going to be one of the plus-minus leaders around the league, and he's going to lead this team in 5-on-5 ice time. And here's the biggest one for me, Rick. Like, you get to an arbitration hearing, one of the things you get to present as evidence is like the individual contribution to the success and or failure of a team. Well, that's like a one-sentence argument for Hronek, right? Like, before I came, this team had 83 points. By the time I arrived and became their minutes leader 5-on-5, we hit 83 points in February.
But didn't you just say, Thomas, though, that his numbers away from being partnered with
Quinn Hughes are mid.
aren't all that great?
Sorry,
mid.
Listen to you, Rick.
I'm accepting your categorization of their should.
They're mid.
I accept that there's
Mid.
some buyer beware that we should rationally have here
Yeah.
and that the Canucks should rationally have here. But I don't know how you make the argument, like a compelling argument against an arbitration eligible player for him to be paid. Like, this guy's going to have the best arbitration case that we've seen from a defenseman since PK Subban. I don't know any way around that, Rick.
What?
You made a good point there, Thomas, but I'm just trying to get back at you for those really outstanding numbers you gave when you compared Miller at Pettersson's
Pettersson.
age versus Pettersson. That was really good. You put
Thank
me in
you.
my place, so I'm just trying to do the
No,
same
I'm sorry.
thing.
I meant to block
Keep that
shots
in
for you.
mind.
I will say, I think I think we can all agree this is a complicated situation.
It is.
With Hronek. And the one thing I'll say is
Yes,
that
it is. Yes, it is.
Not that I'm projecting that they'll trade him or anything like that, but I think you look at Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin and how this front office has operated. At least for me, I have the confidence that they're not going to make a mistake just out of fear of losing the player, right? Like, I think they have a number,
Yes.
and if it pushes above that, I think they're probably willing to take bold action in that case.
Yeah, don't ignore the flag plan effect.
You know
though.
what?
Don't-
Jamie, you said the best thing. Jamie, you said the best thing out
Rick's
of all.
ignoring you right now.
Hey, no. Jamie said the best thing out of everybody. If you outprice yourself, you will be gone.
Yeah.
There's no question. Jamie said it. If it's
Thank you, Rick.
8.5, Thomas, they can't do 8.5. If you give him 8.5, Thomas, how are you going to re-sign all your remaining UFAs? How?
Well, they're not comparable to Hronek. Like, you're going to
Okay,
have to
but,
make.
How much
Dude,
money
I'm not-
do you got left?
It's like $13 million. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight though, whether you get him at 7.25 or 8.5. You know, like we're talking about a $1.3 million swing. That's a rounding error in an $87.5 million cap environment. You know, like we're talking about a difference of 1.5%. I get what you're saying. It's an extra fourth line player, but it's not a world apart, Rick.
Well,
The other
you know what? One thing he has. Well, sorry, Thomas.
No, please.
You had your say. Hold on a second.
Yes, you're right.
One thing that everybody talks about, and Cale McCarr's coming into town tonight, or is in town, and will be on Rogers Arena ice tonight. Right-handed defenseman.
Yep.
How many years the Canucks looking for a stud right-handed defenseman? They get one, and they're going to let him go. So maybe as crazy as it sounds, those big contract numbers aren't out of the question when you combine everything. By the way, you used the word, Jamie, complicated earlier.
Sure.
If you want to hear complicated, watch the replay of our show and check out Kelly McCrimmon's answer to us asking him about them massaging LTIR.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
It was 22-minute answer, and oh, my. But Kelly went off. Because
I
a
thought
lot
you were
of
gonna
people are
say,
criticizing Vegas right now.
I thought you were going to say complicated was Rick trying to figure out the cough button at the beginning of the show. I caught that.
Oh, well, there's that too.
Yeah, but that was Henderson. That wasn't me. That was Henderson.
yeah.
That was another mistake by Henderson.
I got a couple texts here I want to read to you guys to sign off with in the Dunbar Lumber text line. First, somebody texted in that Drance has become house radio because he's not willing to hold Tocchet's feet to the fire on overplaying Thatcher Demko. So I thought you'd appreciate that one.
You either live long enough to be the hero
He
or
wasn't
die.
That's
or
where
die
we
as
are
house
now.
radio.
Drance's house radio, and this one from Mike and Willoughby. Hronek without Hughes would be like Dhali without Donnie. Shots fired. Shots fired right there, Rick.
See, he'd be just fine, so I don't know if I buy that.
I think they're just looking. You're always sitting on the right side.
That's
Donnie.
true.
Donnie.
That's
you're,
true.
You're the right
shot
side.
guy.
Yeah.
You're
Donnie's
the right side
lucky.
panelist.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is
All
true.
right,
That is
fellas,
true.
this was great as always. Thanks for doing this. See ya.
Always fun, guys. Thank you.